So in this video, I'm going to be going through your expressions and equations test. It was an ecart test, and this was the very first question. What I have done is I have printed all of these questions into a PDF, and they're all now in the Smart Notebook file. And this allows me to go through question by question with some explanations off to the side. So this was an ecart. I wanted to remind you guys that yes, you are looking at this ecart. You are looking at corrections on this particular test, but I've got it printed out for us here. So I'm just going to be going through. I want you guys to make corrections on your corrections sheet as you watch this video. I'm going to be starting up here with question number 1. And the idea here is that as you can see me going through the problems, if you want to skip ahead in the video and skip to a question that you missed, feel free to do so. For the very first one, I wanted to remind you guys that we have 3 types of expressions: numerical, variable, and algebraic. Numerical is if it's numbers only, variables would be letters only, and algebraic is both. So for the very first question, it's true or false. And let me get my highlighter here. So is 5 plus 3 a variable expression? No, not at all. 5 plus 3 would be a numerical expression, okay? All right, so which of the following are examples of equations? Now with our equations, we're looking for stuff with an equal sign. Now for A, that would be an algebraic expression. D with just numbers would be a numerical expression. So we've got B, C, and E are all 3 the ones with equal signs, and those are the equations, okay? So equations have your equal signs, expressions do not. All right, now for question 3 here, back in the day we had a Google Slides where you had to box your terms in green. So we're basically saying you've got 3 x's and then you're going to subtract 5. So the term that's all by itself, a number that's all by itself, that's the constant. So in this situation, we're looking for a constant that is a -5. So we want the constant to be a -5, and that already knocks it down to answer choice D. Now the coefficient is the number that's multiplied by the variable, and we can see that here. So make sure that you recognize that the negative is with the 5. Y'all, if this wasn't here, this number all by itself would be a -5, okay? And the constant is a negative. All right, and now for number 4, it says in the algebraic expression below, the variable is h, the coefficient is -2, and the constant is 4. So let's verify. In our 2 terms here, the variable is in fact an h. We're good to go there. The number with it is in fact the -2. So far, so good. And the constant, the number all by itself, is a +4. So this would be true. All right, now we are on question 5. And when translating here, I wanted to remind you guys that you're essentially always on the lookout. You're going to scan for than. But if there is no than, then you just translate from left to right, whatever you see. So for this one, the quotient of 3 and a number y, since 3 comes first, it's on the top. And since a number y is second, it would go on the bottom. And then we're going to increase that by the 11. So the quotient would be the answer of the division problem. So you divide these and then add 11 to that. And so that one is going to be answer choice C. What a lot of people did was picked answer choice B because you're used to the variable being in the numerator. But that would be if a number y came first before 3. And that's this sentence right here. If you saw a quotient of a number y and 3, since this is now first, that's when you'd see that in the numerator, and the 3 would be in the denominator. Friendly reminder for A, that this right here, that would be the product. When you see multiplication, you're looking at a product, okay? You might need to know that for today's retake, okay? All right, and now we're on number 6. So we want to translate here. And what I have done is I've translated, in case you picked answer choice A or B, I've shown what they would look like off to the side if you just want to reread those. But for C and D, we do have thans. And when we box the than, for C, we have the product of 8 and a number B. That would go first. But then it's going to be decreased by 5. And we want 5b decreased by 8, and that's going to be answer choice D. So we've got the product of 5 and a number b that's going to go first. Now show me 8 less than that by taking away 8, and that's why answer choice D matches up. Now for number 7 here, when we're translating this statement, we have 6 times the sum. And so I wanted to remind you guys over here, if you saw this problem, if you saw 6 times 12 plus 4, what you would do first is you would get a sum. You would add 12 plus 4, and you'd get that sum of 16, and then you'd multiply and say 6 times that sum. So over here, we want the sum of x and 4. We want that to come first in parentheses. Now show me 6 times that with a 6 out here. And then, of course, we still had the is equal to 54, and that's your equation equals 54. So that's answer choice B. All right, we're moving right along. Now we are on question 8. So we're going to be translating this guy, and it's 99 equals, and then it's 11b minus 7. So I'm not sure if you picked A, B, C, or D for this one. The one that we want to pick is answer choice C. We have a than. So the product of 11 and a number B comes first. Now show me 7 less than that. What I did here, folks, was I translated A, B, C, and D for you, so that if you picked either A, B, or D, you can kind of see what it would look like, and that can help you identify your mistake, okay? All right, now we are looking at question 9, and this is a variable expression. We have just letters, and we're going to be plugging in here these values, and we're going to be plugging in an A right here, -3 right here, and 6 is right here. The big mistake I noticed here is that some people who have this minus, you forgot that you need to bring it down in your work, because when you plug in this -3 right here, that minusing the negative is going to turn into addition. So some of you, the wrong answer that you got, you left it as 6 minus 3 and then did plus 9. So some of you got this 3 plus 9 and some of you got 12. That is incorrect, okay? This turns into a double negative, which is adding. Now for number 10 here, when you see the two letters next to each other, that means to multiply. So if B is -3 and C is 6, you're just multiplying those two to get a -18. And then you just divide it. And if A is 9, you're just going to divide right there. And so here, a -18 divided by 9 is a -2. All right, we have 2 more PEMDAS problems, or now I've got off to the side our acronym of GERMDAS. The G is for the grouping symbols. That could be parentheses, it could mean brackets, it could even mean absolute value. The E stands for exponents, so things like 3 squared. The R stands for the radical, so things like the square root of 4. And this is whichever comes first from left to right. Just like multiplication or division, it's whichever comes first from left to right, and then adding or subtracting, whichever comes first from left to right. So in this numerical expression, inside of our grouping symbol, we do have some addition. That's where I get this 9. In the next step, I take the square root of 49 and get a 7, and I go ahead and deal with the 3 squared, which is 9, and so I take care of both of those and then just copy down the rest. Now we've got multiplication. This is a 36, and we're going to be subtracting this 36. So that actually right there cancels out to be a 0, and that's why we're left with just 7 for this problem, just 7. All right, now we're on question 12. So in the numerator, folks, we have a -5 times a -5, and that negative times negative is this positive 25. And then I just leave the plus 7 times 9. The next thing I do is multiply the 7 times 9, and that's where I get the 63. And then when I add these two together, we get 88 in the numerator. Now for your denominator, we've got division. So 24 divided by 3 is 8. And now 8 minus 4 is 4. So the last step here is to divide 88 by 4, and that's where we get 22. Now question 13 here, it's going to spill over to my next page. We're going to solve this equation. This is question 13. So I want to remind you guys here that our coefficient is currently a fraction. And so if I want this to turn into a 1, I need to multiply by its reciprocal right here. When I multiply the 2 times 3, that's 6. Same here, and 6 over 6 is 1. So there's the 1. And what I do to this side, I've got to do over here. So you can do 6 times 3, which is 18, and then divide it by 2 to get 9. Or you could do 6 divided by 2, which is 3, now times 3, and that's still 9. And friendly reminder that you never have to write the 1. So here we're going to get that x would be 9. Now in a picture here to check, what we're saying is there was some value out there which we didn't know, And when I broke it into thirds, we then took 2 of those thirds, and 2 of those thirds were worth 6. So that must mean this is 3 and this is 3. So this must be a 3. So that's the 3, 6, 9. That's the whole 9 that we're proving that thing is. All right, for number 14, Hugo was thinking of a number. The sum, so the answer of his addition problem is 125. So the sum of x and 55, his number, plus 55 is 125. So what we want to do now is solve by just simply subtracting, and that'll help us get Hugo's number. What some of you did was you just saw the 55 and the 125, and some of you added 55 plus 125 to get that sum. That would be incorrect. But if you got that, if you got 180, that's what you did wrong. That is incorrect. What we want is 125 minus the 55, and so we'll get that x is 70. Hugo's number must have been 70. So now the sum of 70 and 55 is 125. All right, now we're on question 15. So if a taxi company charges a $3 flat fee, I wanted to remind you guys that the flat fee is the constant. And when you see things like each or per, that's going to be the coefficient of your variable, which is m in this situation. So if we travel 16 miles, what we're going to do is we're going to multiply 1.25 by 16. And when you multiply 1.25 by 16, what you get is 20. So that part would be $20. But we still have to add the flat fee that's on the meter when you already get into the cab. So this is going to be $23 total. All right, for the next one, if Yang spent $38, we are looking for a negative 38. Now we don't know how much he started out with, that's this part right here, but the amount of money that Yang started out with and then spent 38, that means he came home with 14. So to figure out how much money he started with, what you would do is take the 38 that he spent and add it right here, and you can see how much he started out with. So C was the equation that we would use to show that he must have started out here with $52. Okay? All right, that's 16. So now we are on question 17. And we're going to solve the equation for the variable and then make sure you check your answer. So for this one, our variable is on this side, and we do have a constant. So when we drop our line, we're going to add 7 to both sides, and this will cancel out, and we can bring down the 2y. 23 plus 7 is 30. So now I'm going to divide both sides by 2 because I want that to cancel out and be 1. So that's where I get the 15. So to check, we've got 2 times 15. We're just going to plug it in and take away 7 and see if we get this 23. So here is 30. And now take away the 7, and we do in fact get 23. All right, here's the work for number 18. For number 18, my constant is this positive 10, so I subtract 10 on both sides, and that cancels out. I just bring down b divided by 4. And negative 1 minus 10 is negative 11. Now in purple, I'm going to show you guys that when you have b divided by 4 and you're multiplying by 4 over 1, what happens is you get 4b in the numerator, and in the denominator you get a 4, and that 4 divided by 4 is the 1. So that's why that cancels out, okay? b over 1 is just b, all right? So you multiply by 4 over here, we multiply by 4 over here, and that's how we get the negative 44. So when we check our negative 44 and plug it in, let's see what we get. So this would be a negative 11 plus 10, that is negative 1, and that's what we wanted to get. All right, we are almost done here. We're on number 19. So once again, we have 2 steps to take. We have a positive 8, so I'm going to subtract 8 on both sides. That cancels out. I can just bring down my 6q, that's negative. And over here, negative 82 minus 8 is negative 90. Now I'm going to divide both sides by this negative 6, and so q would be the positive 15. When we check, we're going to get negative 6 times 15. We're going to plug it in right there and then add 8 to it. Now this is the negative 90. And when we add 8, y'all, we get closer to 0. And so that would be the negative 82. And that is exactly what we wanted. So we know that q equals 15 is the right answer. Now for number 20, I want to be very careful to point out that this technically has a -1 with it. So the first thing we're going to do, like you're used to at this point, is to get rid of the constant. Since this is a +5, we want to subtract 5, so that cancels out. But we've got this negative that we're bringing down. So here's the -1, and on this side there's 7. So now I'm going to divide this side by a -1 and this side by a -1, and we're going to get -7 for x. So a couple mistakes I noticed here. Some people, the mistake was you added 5 on both sides. That's wrong. And some people did not catch that it should have been divided by a negative. So some people picked A for that reason. All right. So that takes care of 20. Now 21. Now we're on 21. So for 21, here's the work. You've got a -9 as your constant, so you're adding 9 on both sides. That cancels out. And here it's going to get closer to 0, so this is -36. Now, when, again, you have a denominator, you're multiplying both sides by that number, and technically that's over 1. And over here, I'll just put times -3. So that cancels out, and C is all by itself. And this over here, this is going to be a positive 108. A negative times negative is a positive 108. And now for the very last question here, it says, which of the following is an expression? So B is an equation. C is an inequality. D is an equation. So A is the only one without an equal sign or a comparison symbol. This would be a numerical expression. So at this point, you should have completed your corrections. Please turn in to Ms. Hoffman. And now you're going to be working on your retake, which is a Google form. And all the questions are in the Google form. You're going to show your work on a separate sheet of paper for the qualifier. But Ms. Hoffman is not collecting your work for the retake. The only thing I'm collecting right now is your corrections, okay? And that concludes this video. Good luck on your retake. Thank you.